This is TWiT.
I want to introduce our special guest, a guy we love and know and we've had on before, Rich Siegel. He is the guy in charge at Barebones Software, barebones.com, creator of the single most useful program on every Macintosh, BBEdit. Hi, Rich. Good to see you.
Hi, Leo. It's good to be here.
Your ears are probably burning at WWDC because they mentioned BBEdit, and my jaw dropped in the context. They mentioned Panic Transmit and Barebones BBEdit would be on the App Store with the new Mojave.
That's right.
I thought we have to get Rich on. Now, please don't. I know you've got to be politic and you got to be nice to Apple, but you had very famously said we can't be on the App Store with BBEdit.
Yeah. So back in October 2014, I think it was, we got to this decision where we looked at sort of what it took to be in the App Store and the changes we had to make to the product and the way we had to have really sort of two different products for one for App Store customers and one for not App Store customers. And at the time, we reached the decision that it just wasn't a good fit for us. And time passed. We've had a lot of conversations with Apple, and now we're at that place where we feel like they're hearing us. They feel like they have heard us, and we feel like they are pushing the technology forward. So now we sort of got to the place where we said, "Oh, okay. It looks like we can now be in the App Store, and we can sell direct, and we can sell the same product to both customers, both sets of customers, and everybody wins." So that's where we ended up.
There are two negatives there's several probably, but two big negatives to being in the App Store developers talk about. There's a technical negative and there's a commercial negative. One of the negatives is you don't have a direct relationship with your customers anymore. It's intermediated through Apple. I mean, they take 30%. That maybe you get the value for that, but I think in a larger way, you don't get access to them.
That's right. Apple keeps their customer information very close at hand. Developers who sell in the App Store don't know who the customer is unless the customer reaches out to us, as, of course, they can do anytime for assistance. And that challenge is still there for us. There's really nothing we can do about it. Apple knows how we feel about it, and we've said kind of all we can. So that issue is still there. We're going to live with it.
Yeah. All right. And it maybe is worth living with it because especially if you get featured at WWDC Keynote or you're featured in the App Store, they're going to have more editorial stuff in the App Store, so there'll be more opportunities to be featured. It's a great way to let people know about what you do. So maybe it's a good way to build your sales, even if you don't get the email addresses of your customers. The second issue, though, is a technical issue, and that has to do with the sandbox, the limitations that App Store apps have on. Now, I can understand why Panic said we can't do an FTP program because we don't get access to the file system. But I got the sense that this in Mojave, this is going to change.
So access to the file system for sandboxed applications has always been sort of a very fluid notion. When you're in a sandbox, you certainly don't get unrestricted access to the file system. And the security folks at Apple, they're very clear on this. The notion is not so much that they don't want apps doing anything. It's just that they're very conscious about wanting to protect the user's data. So there are ways that you can request access to parts of the file system outside of the sandbox. There are mechanisms that you can use and that are supported. For 1014, you can request certain, what they're called entitlements, in which your application is allowed to look in certain places. So the technology has advanced to the point there where, again, for 1014, we can address a lot of those issues head on and then have an application that our users can use. They can read the file system. They can do multi-file search and replace operations. It'll be fully functional.
Will the command line features of BBEdit be functional as well? I love the fact that I have a worksheet that can be the bash shell. And it's kind of like the old Mac Programmer's Workshop where you could see previous commands. You get it all. I love that. You can edit them. Will that also be functional?
Yeah, absolutely. That's an essential part of the plan, is to have the product that is completely and fully functional for both App Store and not App Store
So
customers.
there won't be a difference between BBEdit whether you buy it on the App Store or you buy it direct from Barebones.
Yeah, that's right. That's the plan. That's the intention. We do have a lot to go. A lot of time between now and when Mojave ships, and the details. Of course, some of them still need to be flattened out technologically, and we have a great deal of work and testing to do. But yeah, that's the plan. Apple and we and Apple are. We share an understanding of that plan, and this is a plan that's going to happen.
The other thing, and I'm not a Mac OS developer, so you'll have to correct me if I'm saying something dumb. My understanding is that an application, when it's installed on Mac OS, has to request entitlements, the ability to do certain things. And by the way, I'm not against any of this. I completely understand Apple's point of view here. It does enhance security. It's appropriate to sandbox applications, and as long as you could still buy apps direct from the developer and not through the App Store, it doesn't hinder anybody on the Macintosh who wants to do something with more capability. I like buying stuff in the App Store. I like the notion of the security it provides, and I would like to see more apps like BBEdit available in the App Store. Do they change the entitlements?
So the notion of entitlements is. Entitlements are also almost like a programming language. So you can write whatever entitlements you like, and then the question is, are you allowed to use those entitlements for an app that is sold through the App Store? So really there are two sides to the issue here. One of them is technological, and the other is a matter of policy. So you can write entitlements that allow your application to do whatever you think it should. And then once you've tested that and made sure it works, then you need to get review permission from App Review to use them. And so that is one of those, as I said, it's a bifurcated issue. So we can request entitlements to do certain things. We have a reasonable expectation based on being able to justify those entitlements that will be allowed to have those entitlements in the App Store.
Okay. So it is conceivable that when the rubber hits the road, and you submit your app and you've requested these entitlements, of course, that are in the app that you get directly from Barebones, that Apple may say, no, you can't, but you've had the conversations that give you the expectation that they'll say, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
What are the sticking points? What are the things that you couldn't do before that you'll be able to do now?
Well, the biggest thing that we couldn't do before was any operation that requested administrative privileges. For example, installing the command line tools that you could use to run BBEdit, the ability to open or save files that you don't normally have permission to open or save. And we're having conversations with Apple about those issues. But again, what the feeling we've got is they understand our requirement to have this fully functional product. They understand that we are not willing to sacrifice features in the name of being in the App Store. And so their position is, instead of saying you can't do that and then putting us in the position of having to work around it, which is kind of where we were a few years ago, now our sense is, now what we're hearing, what we're feeling is from Apple is, let's figure out how to make this work.
Wow. Well, they of all the developers, you and Panic are in the best situation because they've already pre-announced the availability. So there's a lot of incentive for them to make this work for you. But I gather that if it doesn't have 100% functionality equivalence between your direct sale product and the Mac App Store product, you won't do it.
I think if we see that there isn't 100% equivalence, they're going to figure out how to get us there.
Good.